Hello, beloved consumers. Thank you for joining us for UNICAST. This is Unical Unicron,
This is Jeremy Garner.
And I'm Marissa.
and today we're going to be talking about media magic. So, on Instagram, you go by Media Witch. Do you consider yourself a witch, really, or is that just like an edgy name?
I wouldn't say that I'm interested. I don't follow like Wiccanism, um, but I use it as the original interest, I guess, was because of my relationship to media, or maybe the sort of general relationship a lot of people our age have. And I like the comparison of magic and the digital world. I guess it's more on a metaphorical sense. The fact that everything is so immediately accessible that the media sort of is like woven into our lives in a way that's like almost tangible. Does that make sense? But
Hmm.
it's
Yeah,
like I like to think of it as this like woven net that like exists around us at the same time as like the real world.
yeah, it's totally magic. I mean, when you think about like someone coming from 100 years before dropped into our lives now, they'd be like, okay, you are all magicians
Yeah,
because
and
they wouldn't have any idea how we're doing what we're doing.
that was very much a comparison that was, popular long ago. That kind of happened a lot in like early marketing of anything digital. It was sort of compared to magic. I don't know, I just was always felt attracted to that comparison.
Yeah, for sure. Um, this morning, Jeremy and I were talking about the importance of image in media and how that feeds into. I went down this like Instagram trap where I was like looking at everybody's Instagram and I was like looking at the cool Instagrams and their aesthetic and like I guess the magic of aesthetic is really what we were talking about and how if you have a certain aesthetic, you'll draw certain people to what you're doing. And like that's almost a sort of magic as well.
I think what I'm particularly interested in is how you can implant fiction into your like online persona, or not persona, just your online existence. And there's not really, there's much more of a connection between fiction and nonfiction.
I think there was like this guy who I can't remember who he was or what his name was, but I know he was like running away from the cops for a while, and he pretty much created this whole kind of online persona that wasn't correct at all by just photoshopping himself into like places next to signs and stuff that like would indicate that he was at a certain place when he was actually in a completely different country and things like that. So like you can totally bring in this whole. I know that that wasn't like for marketing and media so much, but it was like still this way of building this whole online persona in a sense
Mhm.
that he had the total control and he was like casting all of the magic through that, and was able to avoid the police for quite some time because of that. And like that could cross over as well into um, media manipulation in the same way, like that whole
Yeah.
kind of.
I actually just started another Instagram account where I'm doing a sort of similar thing.
Oh
It's like
wow,
a
interesting.
travel Instagram, but all of the pictures I take are pictures of my computer screen.
Oh my god, that's awesome.
It's .com Derlust. It's like Wanderlust, but it starts with .com. It's kind of funny though how the hashtagging works in these certain niches of Instagram. Like I'll get likes right away if I hashtag like travelgram. I don't know, and it's just not a different subculture that I'm not part of. It's kind of interesting to explore that.
It's so true. My friend started a like a raw food Instagram and she has like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of followers. Like it's just like this whole subculture of people and of connecting ourselves through hashtags. It's really
Yeah.
powerful.
And that is like a back to like the magic or the spiritual aspect. Um, that is kind of like a just an idea that's very prevalent in like Eastern religions, like interconnectedness. And it's funny how that is so like real in the media world, how like everyone is always connected. But then it also weirdly inspires like short attention spans or something as well, which like kind of isn't, is the opposite. So it's like halfway there, halfway spiritual or something.
Yeah, there's the immediacy aspect and the connection aspect. That's so true. It's like almost polarizing. But
Mhm.
It's true. I think like that technology is really connecting us in these ways that that spiritual teachers have been talking about for a long time, and then we just log on to Facebook or Instagram, and then we're connected in these like really deeply spiritual ways, and people don't really necessarily even like see it that way because it is this more tangible experience where it does exist in our realities.
Yeah, and that's kind of what interested me about your Instagram was that like you seem to really understand that and like it's not talked about as much as I feel like it's should be or something. Like it's really this is one of the like beautiful things about media that but you know, it comes with a lot of issues as well.
So I recently verified myself on Twitter. I basically just photoshopped the check mark onto my own picture.
Oh
And
wow.
it's totally changed the way that people interact with me, and I've gotten more followers and more likes and stuff. It's really weird. But I
Wow.
saw you did something similar on your video. I'm sorry, I don't know. It's called Old Friends Catching Up.
Oh yeah, yeah. That one.
You were putting like the accolades of like this short film awards, right? Like you had those all like laid out on the. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah, that's great. Wait, what's your Twitter? I want to follow that. Oh, here it is.
Uh,
Found it.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's so funny. It's like such
It,
a arbitrary thing that
Yeah.
is that's so funny that that's granted you like this like new authority or something.
it's magic. It affects people in the same way. Like you were putting those like the short film awards on like the image of your short film, right? Like you
hmm
see that and you're like, oh well, this is a good one, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, if you like actually read it, it's just like I don't even remember what I wrote. Life is not what you think, something like that.
Yeah, it's so funny. But like people don't even see that part of it, and like most
Yeah,
people are not even thinking that deeply. Like, oh, she put those on herself. Most people are just seeing that and they're like, do. Like, I'm just gonna watch this
it's
one now.
yeah.
That's
Like
magic.
on a like much lesser scale, it's kind of similar to like people that are busking on the street and then they always started out by putting some money in there first so that other people are encouraged to put it in. And I think it's kind of it doesn't seem related, but it is in the sense that like people want like they can't think about trends for themselves. They have to like wait to see what's popular before they know what's popular.
And I think that's kind of why people end up buying followers and stuff.
Exactly. That's exactly
Similar
why.
thing.
Yeah.
It's like other
hmm
people support me. I guess that's
Yeah.
a very like a human thing that's been around for like forever before, but it's just amplified like so
hmm
intensely on social media.
It's so weird. Like, it's like can we not think for ourselves? Because I do it too. Someone follows me, I'm like, oh, how many followers do they have? Like, why?
Yeah.
What
Totally.
does that matter? I should be able to look at their Instagram and be like, do I like this Instagram or not?
Yeah,
Exactly. I mean, some of the best that I've found have had like the least amount of followers. Like some of those people are the most creative and the most imaginative, but nobody even has caught on how amazing it is because they're too busy following like what other people are thinking is popular.
I know it's so weird. It can just be so arbitrary. I always wonder
Yeah.
like what starts a trend that never ceases to fascinate me. I have no clue like I always want to like trace the origin of a
hmm
certain trend, but it's just like impossible.
Yeah, it gets lost in this whole web. Like I wonder if it is the trend itself or if you could pretty much choose absolutely anything and it's more about the fact that people are participating.
Yeah.
Yeah, all it takes is for it to be a trend. It could be seriously some of the weirdest things.
Yeah.
Like in the 1800s, people were eating tapeworms, like for weight loss, like and
hmm
just the fashions. You can look at fashion and like there's no way you would wear things that people were wearing out, but it changes and then it's like, oh well, it's acceptable to wear this now. So then people will wear like the weirdest things, but it
hmm
won't be weird because everybody's doing it.
Totally. And even throughout the course of my life, I've like can see how certain things have like changed. Like something so like arbitrary, like I used to think like high-waisted pants looked weird, and like it slowly got like conditioned in my head that they look cool, you know?
I'm the same way.
Like,
Like, I didn't wear like skinny jeans for like I was like way behind on that. I was like, these look dumb, you guys. And now like all my pants are that.
yeah, I
It's
just Yeah.
brainwashed.
I mean, I guess that's just our nature, or we're social beings.
Would you say that you like changed on the skinny jean things just because you saw it so much that you were suddenly like, okay, maybe they are cool, or was it more to do with the fact that they were becoming popular and you were trying to fit into a trend? I'm assuming it was the former, right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to buy like I didn't want to be like participating in like crappy like cheap fashion, and I didn't
Mm.
find any pairs that like I liked, and like I just thought that they were, I don't know, it was like a really, it took me a lot of years before I finally was like, okay, fine. But it was actually ended up being more practical because I wear a lot of boots, and so I was wearing these like baggy bottom jeans and like shoving my pants into my boots, and it just like looked bad. So it really had to do more with me wearing boots than anything else. But
But it's almost like, you know, the like experiment with like when you put a frog in normal water and slowly boil it, they don't feel it and they like will die. But if you throw them into boiling water, they like jump out right away. Like you slowly start feeling a certain thing because of the like sway of the world around you.
it's so dire.
The extreme way of expressing it.
So, Jeremy and I are collaborating on an album. We have a new music project called Outside Time and Space. And in our collaboration, it's like we're basically media magicians, is like the whole thing. The album's called Abracadabra. And we're
Mhm.
using hypnotic trance, and we're using, different sounds and things like that that are going to be like working on this really magical level. So it's a really fun project, and it's really fun to like kind of put that magic of the media just right into what we're doing.
Cool, that sounds awesome. So do you guys identify like with do you practice magic? Like
How do you define magic?
I mean, I don't know I like how I would define it. Just like do you I mean, do you feel like you like the way you were asking me, I guess, if I identify as a witch?
Yeah, I definitely identify as a magician in the sense that you make things happen by seemingly non-physical means, but also you can make them happen through physical means as well. Like magic works through both, but I think it's basically just we call it magic, but it's really just knowledge. If you have
Hmm.
knowledge, then you have like the means of achieving things that seem out of your like basically things that seem impossible become possible.
Yeah. I
The way
always sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's just the way I see magic is like on every level. So I see magic as like if you are wanting to like make a piece of fabric and you sit down and you weave it, that's physical magic. But then there's
Mhm.
also like another layer of magic where you're like imagining what the fabric will look like, and you put like a cool design into it through your imagination. Like that's another
Hmm.
level of magic. And so I think we are all magicians in the sense that we are all working on these levels. But as far as like being like a focused witch, and like using energy on these different levels, then like you can have more effective results because you're focusing your attention on the results pretty much. So that's how I define it. But
Cool. Very cool. I always sort of saw like the idea of being psychic as just being incredibly aware of your surroundings.
Aware of your surroundings, did you say?
Yeah, just being like insanely hyper aware.
Right, yeah, because like we're already naturally psychic, but it's just like we're not tuned into all of those natural senses, and so they're already there, but by tuning into them, then they become a reality. And it's the same with magic in the sense that it's nothing new, it's just like the secrets of nature, and we uncover them. It's more just like understanding the laws that there is in the universe.
Yeah. And do you guys feel that media has enhanced your magical
I
abilities or
think that
your knowledge in
like
that sense?
I think that the current media is like using it in a kind of darker way. Like when I just walk anywhere in public and we have to hear songs repeating over and over again from the radio, and like advertising wherever we go. Like they're using media now in this like really darker black magic kind of way. But because
Mhm.
of those same techniques, you're able to like take that and use it in a more effective way. So like when I create music, that magic has a big part to do with it, and like I think about how I'm layering things and how I'm putting things together to induct this kind of trance-like state, and how to get the listener in the right state of mind to receive messages that are going to uplift and help the person ascend into a higher place of being, which is something that is not happening in the current media so much, because they're more designed to try and get people to consume and
Yeah, that's like
consistently
the
buy.
downfall of the internet, in my
Mhm.
opinion, is like the commercial aspect.
Yeah, how everything's based around like advertising and trying to like figure out the trends so that they can sell more to them, and then just, yeah, exactly, it's the same.
And what it has
Physically,
become is like, sorry,
no,
is
sorry, you go
what it
ahead.
has become is like you sort of feel like you're having an individual experience on the internet, but with all the cookies and like tracking of what
Hmm.
you're doing because of like the commercial world, it's like kind of a fallacy, like a fake sense of
Everything you're doing,
individualism.
you could be writing just like with Facebook, even you're writing private messages or something, and it seems that they're picking up on keywords and putting them in that little sidebar as advertisements. Like, I remember writing to somebody about the film Jeepers Creepers, which is not a film that would generally be advertised, and then straight after writing about it, it's like it appears in the sidebar. Do you want to like this page, Jeepers Creepers? And it's like that kind of stuff has happened so many times that it's clear that there's some kind of like keyword um, thing that's trying to like find what you're interested in based on what you're talking about. And so it totally does infiltrate your everyday life because they're constantly trying to find some kind of connection to advertising.
The only
Yeah,
thing that's wrong with
very.
like that level of data collection is that it's not available to us. So they're collecting all this data on us and they're using it to make money, and they're making tons of money. Mark Zuckerberg is now the sixth richest man in the world. So they're making tons of money off of our data, but we don't have access to it. Imagine if it was used for our benefit, where we could, like, think about how Google, like, helps you out so much with your own data. You know, like you can look at all your own data on Google and you can be like, oh, well, I see like this, like they give you all the analytics and everything like that. But like with Facebook, they like keep it behind like paywalls, or they like don't even tell you, even though they know all that information. They're setting themselves up to be the more powerful entity, and just they're just sucking all of our data from us when data
Right.
is really valuable. It's valuable for us. It's valuable for everyone to
Yeah.
have data.
Well,
It can
yeah,
help
I
us.
mean, it's like I was just before when I was defining magic in the sense of like a higher kind of knowledge. You can imagine how much knowledge that they would have with access to all of that data. It basically makes them like potentially very powerful magicians to have access to all of that data.
Exactly. And that's like that's to me is it's scary just like that amount of power, and it's not even like a personal thing because a lot of people don't care like if they're it's like I don't really care if people know what websites I'm going to, it's more of a like
Mm.
a structural issue to me that um someone has that much power, and it's a small amount of people that have it, and they have control over like what like the sort of interconnectedness we were talking about. I think it stifles that in a way because now we're like fed into these like sort of different groups based on our interests or what we've shared, and now we're fed into those like advertising feedback loops, and it like I think it obstructs us from finding new pockets of the internet or like connecting with others.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
A lot of people see it as like an individual problem. I wonder just like how it can be prevented.
I
I
think
like
there's
how the
steps being made, like encryption, and people who are fighting um, for our data, and like I think just awareness too. Like people are just, I mean, it does seem like people don't care necessarily, but alternatives are going to be popping up. Alternative social media networks that are like, okay, like even Elo is like not that good of a site because not that many people use it. But the whole premise behind it is um, that there is no advertising. You know, that people have the right to their own data. So there are people who are innovating, and Facebook is going to get swept away and not be like, they're pretty established now. They have a lot of money, but as soon as we all decide to stop using Facebook, like
Hmm.
we can stop using Facebook. But until then,
I think there could even be a new internet altogether, like a separate, I don't know, there's like the dark net, but I feel like there's going to be something like that that's more accessible to the general
Mm.
public. Facebook, are you guys like on Facebook like part of like those like weird Facebook groups, the meme groups?
I was like actually getting like pretty into that. But then Facebook kicked me off for my name. But it
Yeah.
is weird on Facebook, those weird groups.
So crazy what Facebook has become, and it's like that's pretty like exciting to me. It's just like almost like what 4chan used to be, but like kind of more less,
Self-aware.
a little more like politically correct and self-aware.
Yeah. Like a lot of weird, like the worst memes as the most popular memes because they are the worst memes.
Yeah.
And we were watching this one girl, Anne Frank is her name, and she was like saying that she had 6 MacBooks and one of them like got a scratch on it, so she needed money to get another one. And
Right?
it's just, like, it's just so funny, like to see where people are taking like all of these trends and pushing them to like.
Why did you have six?
It was like a joke overall, right? Like she's just like this rich like little girl who like needs more MacBooks. And, but she was taking it really seriously, you know. And the comments on the channel were like, "You dumbass! Like, why do you need the people are starving?" You know, and like they couldn't like comprehend that it was like a total joke, and
Yeah. People
because
get
people are so
so
used to
mean
it.
in comments.
I know, and they just take everything for truth. It's like you were saying earlier, like that line between fiction and like, do you feel is it a lie if it's such an obvious joke that people don't get?
I know, it's bizarre. And it's the way that like the mob mentality online becomes just like so evil. Like when people attack certain people.
And that's all related to trend as well. Like a lot of the time, people would not normally even do that, but they're doing it because they're seeing other people do it, and then they get involved in it as well. It's like they've already proven through studies how like people will be more willing to like throw stones at someone or something if there's like 5 people with them doing it, but they'd never do that on their own, of course. So it's like there's this group mentality, there's a power in group mentality where like it's the same with hypnotic induction and performances on stage or whatever, where you have like a whole audience and you can get all of them to do something in unison with one another that none of them would as likely do on their own, but because it's happening in this group way, it's like it becomes so much easier for everyone to just entrain to that.
Yeah, and do you feel like you guys, want to sort of do the opposite of the like evil mob mentality?
Well,
Right,
it's
like you
using
use the same.
the same techniques, but then
Yeah.
to be like making people aware that these techniques are being used.
Yeah.
Mm.
You know, it's like, okay, well, we're going to all like do this one thing now. Like, okay, why did you do this thing? You know,
Cool.
I
Yeah.
used,
Well, yeah, like Unicole just says, "I'm a brainwasher. I'm
yeah,
brainwashing you."
I'm
I
brainwashing.
love that.
I say that all the time. Like, you are being brainwashed, and I just repeat that you are being brainwashed because, first of all, it makes my message more powerful because people think I'm brainwashing them, and then the second thing is like they realize that like they're being brainwashed on a lot of levels. You know, like the way that I define brainwashing is internalizing any bit of information without thinking deeper about it. So we're being brainwashed, you know, constantly by all of our surroundings by that
Mhm.
definition, and it's just like it's an encouragement to be thinking more deeply about the things you're being exposed to and the things that are shaping your reality, um, because yeah, we just internalize all these things as truth, but they're not necessarily truth. They're just what somebody else is doing or saying, and we think that that's truth because somebody else is doing it or saying it. It's a group mentality a lot of
Yeah.
times.
That's great. I love that you say that because it's so real. I mean, a goal of my art is to sort of like brainwash for good or what I believe is good.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're about.
And I think every media in a way, like just everything is a form of brainwashing. Like every movie you watch, and I think it's pretty dangerous when they don't have a certain intention and it's just sort of feeding into like what is popular or like what's going to get more money. I don't know.
Just
That's
money.
so
It's all
dangerous.
just money. And yeah, and what does it do? It's like that advertising loop you talked about, and it's so empty and it's so unfulfilling, and it's just led us down this like really depressing like that's why everyone's so cynical because there's no content in the content. There's no like There's
Uh-huh.
there's nothing in it except like here's an image of something you liked before
Yeah, it's such
pointed
a
at
sad
you.
thing. But that's kind of what's cool about like weird Facebook. I feel like it's gotten to be very like political in a way, and no one's worried about making money because you're not making money from your clicks and posts. So it's, I don't know, it's kind of an exciting microcosm to me.
That's a really good point and like a really good like reversal of that issue, you know, of not getting paid. Well, since no one's getting paid, we're all being more honest and authentic with what we want to be posting. We're not like presenting ourselves as falsely as we would be if we were getting
Mm.
paid for it, trying to
Yeah.
appease other people with what we're posting.
And that's like I saw this conference last week about like art criticism online, or just like it was at the new museum, and that was like one of the points someone made about, uh, when you're posting online, you've got nothing to lose. It's not like you're writing in a magazine or some sort of publication that's paying you. You're just posting it, and it's like more honest. You're not trying to make money.
Yeah, that's a huge motivator, I think. Like to be honest is and like to be authentic. It's like I have to write this because it's just coming from within me. It's not like I have to write this because I have a deadline, I'm getting paid. It's like
Yeah.
I just
So
want to
maybe
share.
so maybe it's good that we're not making money from
Yeah,
it or
it's so
something
funny.
in
For
a
at least
way.
for a while. Yeah, until we do establish this more authentic place. But people still are pretty dishonest on the internet because we care so much about what each other thinks.
It's a different form of currency, I guess. Social
Likes
currency.
has become the new currency.
Yeah. I mean, it's real. Yeah.
If you could put up a picture you hate about yourself and then 30 people like it and you're like, oh, okay, it must be good then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or when you put up a good picture and no one likes it and you start doubting it.
Exactly. Yeah. So it
Totally.
shouldn't really have anything to do with that, but that's very much the same mentality as the money and how these trends work is that suddenly they see this niche and they're like, wow, this is making money. Well, we didn't think that would, but let's do it anyway, even though we didn't like it. So it's kind of like, I think by doing what you actually believe in and what you want, some things people are going to like, some things people aren't going to like, and it's really kind of arbitrary. And I think they're just finding trends just
Hmm.
where just because they are just the way that it's working. It's like it's not like an actual calculated thing. It's kind of random. I think just keep creating and doing what you're doing. People are
It
going to
is
like it or not
fascinating.
like it.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, the like a deeper look at the algorithms or whatever. It's just sort of like virality promotes virality, or like the rich get
Hmm.
richer. It's like if you get a lot of likes in the beginning, then your post will be seen by more.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's just really random.
But it goes back to that data thing too, because okay, so what if there were no filters, or okay, what if the filters were working in a way where your post was being shown to people who would like it, you
Yeah.
know?
Right.
Because there's gonna be hundreds and thousands of people who would like your post no matter what it is.
Hmm.
And if you're not reaching that audience, then that's not necessarily your fault.
I wonder if that does happen in a little bit of like sort of. It might happen on some sites.
On so, like on a small level, I mean,
Yeah.
Facebook definitely tries to do that. They show you things they think you'll like based on your previous likes, and
Yeah.
then like hashtags is like a way of filtering that. And but then that does lead us. That's a dangerous path because then are we only getting? It's a loop again. Are we only getting fed
Yeah.
things that people think we're going to be liking? How
Hmm.
much stimuli can we be exposed to?
Yeah.
To determine this.
And
I always,
it's good to see things that you don't like as well because it's like it challenges your mind and stuff. But if you're only catering everything to just be exactly what you like, then you're getting such a one-sided view of everything.
you don't expand.
So true.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, I wonder, it's like funny. Sometimes I feel like I have a lot of hope for the world because it's like I see everyone on Facebook is posting about things that I believe in, and then I'm like, wait, I
Yeah,
just want
exactly.
that.
I know it's easy to build up an illusion because of that, and I used to be a little bit like that through being vegan. I didn't want to see people posting about the opposite to that, so I would just kind of like not follow them. But now I'm much more open, and I watch and I listen to those other sides, and it's helped me find so much more compassion and understanding for that other side because it's like this is like a whole big thing, and like if we just ignore how other people are feeling about it, we wouldn't even have the means to like have a good discussion about it with them from either side, because we're just focused on our own individual side. So I think, being open to both is so important.
When you're in a bubble, it's really not a good thing because then you it's very shocking. Like
Yeah.
I was in like a political bubble, like early internet before I could vote. I was like looking at when it was like Kerry Bush, and I was like convinced that Kerry was going to win because of the websites I was looking at, and there
Yeah.
wasn't really like feeds or anything, so I was only going to these specific websites that were promoting these specific ideas, and then the opposite thing happened, and I was totally shocked because everything that I had seen, everything that I'd been exposed to, led me to believe that everyone thought the same way I did, and it
Mm.
was, I was like really confused after that because I just was living in this little bubble. And I think people do that definitely, especially online. You can just get into these little niche groups and think like that they're like these subcultures are like the most important thing, and like everybody feels that way. And like if you post sea punk in a vaporwave forum, like and they don't like it, like your life is like over, but the truth is nobody cares, like really.
I
On
know.
this larger scale.
It's so true. It's, I know. I wonder if like I do think it's really important to like connect these disparate groups, but then it's like they're gonna start bumping heads no matter what.
I think they need like a medium between them that's gonna, help to harmonize it. And I think like media stems from the word medium because that's really what it is. It's like a thing that's in between two different things. So
Yeah,
like through the power of media, I think it's possible to actually connect those two extreme things together, which is basically what I think Unicol is doing with things like pop spirituality. You're like using media to pair these two extreme things together. So you've got like really spiritual people that are being drawn by that word spirituality, and then people that are into pop culture being drawn by that word. And she has aspects of both in her whole being. So it just like draws and attracts these extreme opposites, and then
yeah, that's
through
great.
that media, it like harmonizes both of them. And I think that's like an incredibly powerful thing to do.
Totally, just bringing two groups together. Yeah,
Mm.
Yeah, it's
and
not always easy. There's always like
What's
a little bit of a clash for sure, but
what's very hard when you're putting like sexuality with spirituality as well, like this whole idea of doing church on a kind of porn site that you do, like to me that's like an incredibly great pairing of opposites. But
yeah, and
it's
just
also interesting, it's interesting to
finding
me the
some.
way that like the spiritual side of things seem to be less accepting of the so-called darker thing. That's always,
yeah.
that's always been the interesting thing to me. It's like out of pop and spirituality, it's like the spiritual people will be like, well, you can't have pop and spirituality, but the pop people will be like, well, you could maybe put spirituality in there. It's like they're almost more.
Yeah,
I've had things with like religious people where like I've had connections with strongly religious groups, but then also with people that are like making really dark music or whatever. And like the people with the dark music will be accepting of me if I'm part of those religions, but the people in the religions are never accepting of those people. So
oh
it's
wow,
just so interesting.
interesting.
Yeah,
And how do you have you developed or have you thought of a way to sort of
to
like
harmonize those
remedy
two.
that?
I I think that that's like what the whole media magic thing is really about. It's like
Yeah,
by you can use media and especially music, because music brings all people regardless of what their differences are. Like you go to a concert and it's filled with everybody of all different types of religions and all different types of beliefs, and they're all there in the one place just experiencing this music in that level. And like that is the
totally.
thing that unites everyone. And like you can use that to then implant these messages and use all the same techniques they're using now, but just in a way that's just going to create a state of oneness that we haven't
Mhm.
felt for quite some time.
And I think that's also true about like video and cinema. It's meant to
Definitely.
be viewed in a group. Like, well, I guess I don't know. It's different
Yeah,
now where you can watch everything at home, but it's still they're still like meant to have like a
there is.
wide audience.
There's still a
Yeah,
community feel, even with like Netflix and chill, right? Like
Yeah,
you watch Netflix with somebody else, maybe that's not your end goal, but there is this like group mentality more than like watching it by yourself. It's
I
like
think
a higher
okay.
level. of
Yeah, the fact that
consumption.
you know other people are watching the same thing.
Hmm.
And I think that's why the same reason that you sort of bring pop and spirituality together is like as what has interested me in like genre bending in
Hmm.
I guess I've always loved sort of like multiple genre
Yeah.
cinema.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like even just like pictures of like Paris Hilton as a religious figure or like anything like that, like where you pair these two seemingly opposite things together and then see those together is like it's so much richer.
Hmm.
One thing about media that I think is like so magical, especially about like modern technological media, is how easy it is to create. Like when we were born, people were still using like film. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like to make a movie, and like now you and I, like all of us can like record whatever we want in our room or whatever, and then like post it and edit it and do all this stuff just on our computer. It's like the ease of creation is magic. Like think
Yeah.
about how and like even Jeremy with your music, like you have this amazing sound that you're able to create with like you're still limited with your technology, but like you would never be able to do all that 30 years ago
Exactly. Exactly.
Hmm. And I think
without a lot of money.
And to be able to
that,
just release it like that is so important as well. Like you can not only just make it, but the fact that you can release it out there and put it, like you have your own TV channel basically. It's like the whole world is right there at your fingertips because of the technology.
yeah, and I think that's super awesome as well, but I do think that it's important that the intention is like thought through very well for like the
I
reasons I was
totally
saying
agree. Hmm.
earlier. And I think often that ease inspires like less thought. Not always, but I think that's a thing that isn't great.
I I I could see how that like you could think that way, but then when you just look at like movies that are being made with like millions of dollars of budget and how empty and like dumb they are, and then you
Yeah,
look at like a kid who's like trying really hard just to like copy Beyonce, like it's almost like maybe the intention isn't like as good, but it's just like it's so honest. It's so like
you're right. I
maybe
do think
because
that
that money is not there. I don't know.
I guess like like making it difficult doesn't, or just like putting more work into it doesn't necessarily make it more thoughtful. But I mean, maybe it does to an extent. Yeah, it never ceases to, it just like appalls me how like a multi-million-dollar movie can be made that is like, seems so vapid and like, did anyone
Mm.
ever stop and think and be like, wait, why are we doing this?
And they throw in these like weird, like quote unquote cultural values of like marriage or like a couple getting divorced who like gets made closer through tragedy or whatever the plot of the movie is not actually like deeply satisfying. It's like this weird like almost like puppets. Like
Yeah,
okay,
it's
well we
largely
know
that
like this is
they just
gonna
have these
happen
morals.
kind of. Yeah, and then it's
Yeah.
like a weird fairy tale kind of where it's like really
Mm.
empty and the characters are not even like going through any of the real things that would be happening. I
Yeah,
don't know. It's
and I think,
You can basically have this checkbox. There's just like a checkbox that
yeah.
people are ticking off. We need it to be exactly this, and we need this message to come through, and we need this person to be here. And they just like tick it all off, and they go, "Yeah, we got it." And they don't really worry about the rest of it.
There's a whole
There's no like,
website where they cataloged all that. It's like TV tropes. And you can go
yeah,
in there and you can look at all the different TV tropes and like which media has the same ones and it's like hundreds of pieces of media with the same tropes.
hmm, totally. It's so weird. That's kind of a similar mob mentality thing. The fact that these things like are used over and over again could probably be used better or something. Like pop has like an amazing amount of authority and just like is able to convince people so many things. I believe in it in a way, just in pop in general.
pop is just like what's popular, right? So at the moment, a lot of the stuff that's popular is just not being used for good. It's not good. But if you change what's popular into something that is good, then clearly it's going to be used for good. So if you change what's popular into spirituality, then spirituality is popular. It's like that's the key to it all.
Uh-huh.
I was gonna say how can somebody who's maybe starting to make media, how can they align themselves with the best intent and the best purpose?
I think that they should go with their highest good as to what their heart is telling them to create, and not pay any attention to likes or money or what is popular or what's going on, all that kind of stuff. If they really do want to fit into this kind of sound that's already out there, then try and change it up and do something creative with it and make it different. It's probably not going to be as popular at first because people take a long time to catch on to something that's new because they're used to this, what's current. But like, if you just keep going with anything and repeat it enough, like just keep branching out and changing who you are and following your heart, then I don't think the rest is just going to happen naturally. Like
Hmm.
by being original. I think being original is so important.
Yeah, I mean, I also think I could definitely agree that it's important to like listen to your heart and not only create something that it becomes, I guess, very empty if you're only looking at stuff around you. But I think that it also is important to keep in mind the audience in a way, not necessarily just like pandering to them, but sort of understanding a goal or
I agree. It's like you have to find that right balance. Like with a lot of the music we're making right now, like it could kind of still capture that current audience because it's this very electronic sound and it's similar to kind of some of the stuff you're hearing, and it's not like it doesn't have choruses or catchy hooks or whatever, but at the same time it's a completely different sound at this, as well. So it's like you can combine what's popular with what your heart's doing, and like
yeah.
I just look at it as a challenge. Like people could just say, okay, this synth is what's popular right now. It's just this synth, and everyone in the world is using this synth. They could give that synth to me, and I would do something with that synth that has never been done before. I'd find
Yeah.
a way of like doing it in some completely new and creative way, but I'd still have that synth sound, so it still brings in that same kind of audience, but at the same time you're like expanding and growing into these new territories. And I think that's what they're afraid of doing right now. It's just one thing gets popular, so everybody follows that, and they're like, okay, that's working, so let's just do that. But it's never going to work to the same degree if you're just following someone else. I think it's more important to like break new boundary and like expand into new territories, even if it's not caught on to by the people. Like it's more important to like keep pushing. It's the same with technology. Like we have to just keep expanding the technology regardless of whether people are understanding it or using it
Yeah,
even. We should just still be
definitely agree.
evolving what we have.
Yeah, I totally agree that it's important to, I guess, not in one hand only be doing what an audience wants, but then I think I guess if you're too like cut off and like only thinking about what you're interested in, it can sort of fall flat, but at least you're not, feeding into the like
Yeah, well,
masses.
I mean, like the whole world is so connected that I don't think any one person that truly followed what they wanted to do in their heart, musically or whatever, or artistically, wouldn't resonate with anybody else in the world. Like I think we're so connected that there would have to be other people that would feel the same way. So like
Yeah, it depends
even
on what your
by
goal is. Like if you are trying to reach
yeah,
as many people as possible, you might pander a little bit more than
right,
if you're like if you had like a specific reason to do that, you know.
yeah,
Um, but if
Yeah.
not, like, and even still, like I think we are moving into this purely authentic way of expression where when we are being truly authentic, not pandering, not shaping our art for the consumption of other people, but just making art from our hearts directly. I think that's we're coming into the time when that is gonna be the most popular art.
Yeah,
right. Well, I
totally.
mean, even with this conversation, like we could have written down these key things like, well, let's talk about this before we go on here. If we talk about this, this will be popular and this will be that. But it's so much better to go with the flow of the conversation and just allow our hearts to speak whatever comes to us. And then people that are listening are going to hear that honesty because they know that it's not like we're just trying to fit into this category or like fit into some kind of thing that's popular, because we're just talking about what's in our hearts. And I think that's more effective, and it actually does reach a wider audience by doing that. And like all of my favorite musicians are those who have just like broken those boundaries by following what they feel is just what they're here to do, and then that becomes popular based on the persistence of following their heart. And I think what happens is so many people get impatient to the point where they think that's not working. So then they're like
Yeah.
change to fit into these like molds, and then they lose what, like if they just waited a little bit longer, you'd probably see that that would become like so popular and that would become the new trend. But it takes time because people aren't used to it.
As a
Yeah.
consumer, I think it takes a lot of bravery to like something that isn't popular. Like, I think it takes a lot of bravery
Totally.
to
True.
go on an Instagram page and be like, no, this is good, even though they only have like
Hmm.
47 followers, you know, or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
Like you totally look
like
crazy.
yeah, because
You
that's
know, it's
brave. It's like super brave because you're stepping outside of the box. You're stepping outside of like that mob mentality, and you're making your own decisions. And the more we can do that, the more honest artists can get recognized. So it's really like a community kind of back and forth. Like artists have to be
That's
more
amazing.
honest. Consumers have to be more brave. Like we can
I
actually
feel
all
like
do
I've
what we want.
true. And I think that, it's becomes difficult to follow your heart because there's so much like fog in the way. I think that like sometimes you don't even know what your heart wants if there's so much like stimuli and other things pointing in other directions. So I think that that happens sometimes where people are trying to follow their hearts or something, but they become swayed by like what is popular or what.
Yeah, you just have to
yeah.
keep cutting through that and asking yourself and analyzing, like, why do I like
Mhm.
this? Why do I like this? Why do I
Totally.
like this?
And I think anyone can overcome that just by being self-aware and by being self-critical.
Were you gonna say something earlier, Jeremy?
I think I was just going to say that I must have been raised in, well, I must have experienced things in a very different way because, like, to me, liking something that's not popular has never even seemed like an act of bravery.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I
When I
can.
was like, even in like middle school, I was like realizing that I only laughed at jokes that like popular kids made, and it wasn't like based on the quality of the joke. You know, it was like if a unpopular kid made a really funny joke, I wouldn't laugh. And then I
Hmm.
realized I did that, and I like changed. I was like, no, fuck this. Like I'm gonna be laughing at funny jokes, like not who's popular. But it's just like
Right.
that awareness is like I think even hard for people to even see because it's so easy just to be like, well, I'm gonna laugh with like everybody else about this thing that's not as funny, or I'm just gonna go along with like what's not as good. But that lowers the quality of our lives.
Totally.
Completely. I think what's good is good, and like popularity has very little to do with what's good. So much of what's popular right now sounds absolutely terrible, looks absolutely terrible, and is absolutely terrible. So like popularity has absolutely nothing to do with quality. Like rock music is a great example of a lot of like underground bands that have been able to like rise up without the assistance of the media, without actually having to have songs on the radio, without having to have any of that. But they've built up this huge fan base because they built up this huge community of people that are on the same wavelength and understand what they're doing.
Hmm.
And like just by persistently pushing forward with what they believe in and going with that, like making songs that are 10 minutes long and like these big journeys and changing all the time rather than trying to fit into these like 3 minute quick like put this out here just to like reach this particular type of audience. It's like a lot of people would be like, you can't do that, that doesn't work. I mean, even with like Queen and Bohemian Rhapsody and stuff, how they wouldn't at first they didn't want to play that whole thing. It was like that was one of the longest songs on the radio at the time. They're like, but look how popular it became, it's like
Yeah, and so many people will tell you that you can't
exactly.
like succeed with what you're
Hmm.
doing. It's crazy and it's hard not to listen to that, but it's
It's
just
They
people's
like,
like
always need
favorite thing
resistance.
to say. Like,
yeah,
oh, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. Oh,
it's
Yeah.
really? Well,
right. When
that's
I
going to
tell
be pretty hard. Like,
my
you better have
Yeah.
this or that to do that. Like, you want
Yeah.
to do that? Well, I don't know about that. It's like, oh my
Exactly.
god.
just imagine if
Yeah.
instead of everyone who said that, they said, like, you can do it. Like, imagine how
I
bad.
Yeah.
believe in you. Like, go for it. I support you.
Yeah. Hmm.
You can overcome any challenge. You got it.
Just every time
Yeah.
I say that so someone random, like, almost every time I say I'm a filmmaker or something, they're like, oh, good luck. Like, every,
Right? It's so
I get the same
ridiculous.
thing. Yeah.
so
And
annoying.
and also how people just like base it on how much money you're making or whatever. Like, oh well, do you get much work? Do you get much money for this? And if you're like no, then they're like, oh okay, meaning like must not be very good.
That's the
It's got
only
nothing
time
to do with it.
I feel comfortable like lying. I don't really lie, but if someone's like, "Oh, well, how many how many clients, oh, you're a life coach, how many clients do you have, or how many followers do you have in your cult? Like, I'm like, 1 million. I have 1 million followers in my cult. Because if I sit down and I'm like, well, I have 32 that were and then 73, it's like people would not, they don't actually care. All they're
Yeah.
looking for is an opportunity to try to make you feel like shit. And so the less opportunities you can give people to do that, the more you can just proclaim yourself whatever you want to become
I agree.
already.
And then you're going to be that person
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. But and then also I think like as somebody who's like friends with these other people like who are making things, like to change your language to be like, wow, great, I support you. You can overcome any challenge. Like, you got this. You already are. Like, you figured it out. Great job.
Yeah, there's a lot of negativity.
It's a whole culture. The whole culture of
Because
negativity.
it's not what makes money, I think. And that's just like, it's like we're brainwashed back to that.
It is though. Like that's what's so funny is like, okay, so if you're a filmmaker and maybe like there are like that's the perception of filmmakers is someone who makes who's like a small percentage of a population who makes a lot of money, right?
Mhm.
Like oh you're gonna be one of those filmmakers. Like it's like people don't believe that you can be, but you can because they exist, and so you can become one of them. Like there's nothing
Nothing, yeah, stopping.
different about you and them. It's just like people think like there's this huge wall of separation between success and attempt, and there's really not.
Yeah, it's just sort of like making sure that that doesn't get to you. That's like the single, I think, the like biggest downfall of an artist is other people doubting you. It's crazy.
Yeah, because then it puts doubt into your own mind, and then you stop creating. When I first was making music videos on YouTube, I got all downvotes, just 100% downvotes. I didn't know who it was. I don't know what was happening, but and I thought it made me want to stop creating, But if I had stopped creating at that point, I wouldn't be where I'm at now, which is like leagues and leagues and leagues above
Mm-hmm.
where I was then.
It's
And
strange,
it's like, why would you ever spend your time trying to discourage a creator? I think that's just crazy.
Unless you
I've
feel what
never.
they're doing is truly like evil.
Yeah, and even then, unless it's like truly, truly evil, but even if it's like not in alignment with what you agree with, like give
Yeah.
them some time. Maybe they'll figure it out.
Yeah, it's true. And that's, I guess, the best way to teach people new things is through art, because it's, it's like makes
Magic.
it